Hello everyone and welcome. Today I would like to talk about a game that I enjoy very much, Darkest Dungeon 2. Specifically, Darkest Dungeon 2's trinkets and why they suck. To begin with, I'd like to talk a little bit about trinkets in Darkest Dungeon 2 and the role they play. Darkest Dungeon 2 is a roguelike game, and as such, a large portion of its replayability comes from the semi-random nature of each run. Each run has a party of 4 characters, chosen at the beginning of the game. These characters gain power in 3 significant ways: mastery points to upgrade skills, relationships with the other characters, and trinkets. Mastery points are inconsistent in the amount received from each zone, but once acquired they can be spent however the player wants, even if that means leveling up the exact same skills every run. Relationships, although not guaranteed with differing benefits, do not change the playstyle of the team that much. They can be considered a passive benefit for the most part. Trinkets are where the gameplay gets spicy though. There are trinkets that only increase stats, trinkets that interact with certain mechanics, and conditional trinkets. This gameplay mechanic is where a lot of the per-run variability is. The player has to think about what trinkets work with their characters and how it synergizes with the playstyle that they're trying to achieve. There are even strategies like holding resistance trinkets to use for areas where those statuses are rampant, like holding stun resist trinkets for the final boss, or holding blight resist trinkets for the fetter. If I think this system is so engaging, then why do I think the items suck? Allow me to introduce the first issue with trinkets in Darkest Dungeon 2. Bloat. Many of the trinkets in Darkest Dungeon 2 do the exact same thing to a greater or lesser effect. For example, let's look at blight resistance as a stat. We have the minor, standard, and greater sacrificial host trinkets, the curing cuppa, the kitchen knives, the annotated textbook, the cleansing clasp, and the hardened heart when equipped with dark impulse. That's 8 different trinkets all providing the exact same effect: percentage blight resistance. Not only does this rob the player of the excitement of seeing a trinket reward knowing that it's likely just going to be a copy of one they already have, but it relegates the weaker versions to obsolescence as soon as the greater versions are unlocked. I could maybe see a purpose for them if the weaker versions were reserved for the first zone and the stronger ones for the last zone, but that's not how the game works. Trinkets are obtained randomly throughout the game. In addition to everything already mentioned, these trinkets have a further issue: design. Flat stat increases are one of the least interesting item design choices from a player perspective. Players will just pick the one that gives the largest bonus and toss the rest. Let's look at some of the ways these blight resistance trinkets could be changed to make them more like side grades than strict upgrades and downgrades. A trinket could have a negative blight resist percentage, but with the benefit of automatically curing blight at the end of a turn. In terms of gameplay, this trades the inconsistent resistance of all blight damage for the consistency of only taking 1 tick of blight damage, assuming no one else on the party cures it first. In other words, that character is guaranteed to contract blight, but all damage they take from blight is reduced by 2/3. Another option is to have a trinket that cures blight but only once per combat instance. Depending on the team, this can be very powerful. A team running a Finale Jester can nuke an enemy lineup in only a few turns, in which case a single cure that doesn't take up a combat item slot would be great. In longer fights, like against the Harvest Child boss, it would have far less value than percentage blight resistance though. Yet another option is to just have a very high resistance percentage, but with the downside that if the enemy's blight does stick, the character is stuck with an additional debuff like Daze. This makes the player decide whether they want to play the high odds of resisting all blight, but taking an even greater punishment if they low roll. The final example I would like to add here is one of dynamic value. There could be a percent blight resistance that goes down with increased stress, or goes down as torch goes down, or even a percent blight resistance per token on the character. These interactions between trinkets and game mechanics in a dynamic manner can lead to the player playing the game in a manner different than how they normally would, as they attempt to optimize the items they've collected in their run. None of my suggestions are law, of course, but I think they would go a long way towards increasing the interest and engagement with the trinket system in Darkest Dungeon 2. What do you think? Do you think the trinket system is good as it is? Are my suggestions good or are they terrible? Let me know in the comments below. Also, please let me know if you would like to see me cover more videos on this game and other game mechanics. As always, dropping a like or subscribing are both greatly appreciated. It tells me that you like my content and want to see more, and it tells YouTube to share my videos with more people. Regardless, I hope you all enjoyed the video and have a wonderful day.